Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2017 series Justice League / Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. No, really, I am. I was honestly never that big of a fan of Power Rangers, though I do remember watching it occasionally on TV and thinking that they had some honestly pretty decent video games. Despite however I felt about them though, they always seemed to be sticking around my periphery, ever present for one reason or another. So it was still pretty sad to learn of the passing of Jason David Frank, who played Tommy Oliver on the original series, taking the role of both of the first Green and White Rangers, and would be a regular recurring face on the series throughout all its various changes and incarnations. He would even reprise these roles for the YouTube channel Bat in the Sun as part of the series Superpowered Beatdown. With his passing, I found myself wanting to do something in his memory, and since, I kinda have a platform for that kind of thing now, I thought it might do to cover a Power Rangers comic. But there's a lot of those, and doing that would probably take more time than I have right now. I had been considering doing this specific title for some time now, though I'd been thinking of doing it for sort of like April Fools or something, because it's kind of a ridiculous concept. But then I thought about how the voice of Batman himself, Kevin Conroy, also just passed away, and how this comic gives us a fantasy reality where we could basically have those two childhood heroes of mine interacting. And I just knew it was time to cover this comic. And no, you didn't really need to know any of that, but I guess I felt it necessary to explain why I was covering this comic. And now that I've done that, let's jump into it and take this away. The comic opens on Angel Grove, the delightful hometown of the Power Rangers that seems to be simultaneously both a friendly, homey small town and a bustling big city. I don't really know how to explain those two contradictions other than that this is maybe the inevitable result of blatantly stealing your property from Japanese television and trying to apply some completely different logic to it. But hey, at least this way it's sort of an all-in-one location for a Hallmark holiday movie. And maybe I don't need to explain it because right now, Angel Grove is missing. And Zach, the original Black Ranger, and by that I mean his ranger color was black, not that he was black. He was a black guy, but that's... Okay, yeah, maybe there were some problematic elements to the original Power Rangers. Anyway, Zach seems to think that Angel Grove's apparent destruction is his fault. But fortunately, Superman's there to assure him that it's actually not his fault. Which means, man, there's a lot that has already happened in this story. Because we're starting mise en scène. Wait, no. It's a different French term. In media res. That's it. Maybe that's Latin. The point is, we need to jump back to the beginning of the story, which starts with Alpha 5, the fussy butler robot of the Power Rangers who watches over the command center, currently missing. Zordon, the floating face and leader of the Power Rangers, sends the Rangers to search for him, and it's Zach who finds the missing bot. But something's wrong with Alpha 5. He can't even finish his famous "aye catchphrase. Zach brings him back to the command center to figure out what's going on, but before anyone can, Alpha 5 just explodes. When Zach comes to, Lord Zed, evil overlord enemy of the Power Rangers, and his putty patrol are attacking the command center through the hole made by the explosion. All alone, Zach doesn't stand much a chance against all these guys, but he immediately comes up with an alternate solution, simply using the Power Rangers teleportation technology to yeet Zed and himself straight out of there. But the teleporters were also damaged by the explosion, so not only is Zach being sent to a random location, he's also being sent to a random dimension. Lord Zed and Zach, the two Z's, get separated during the teleportation, and we'll get back to where Zed ends up in a moment. Because first we see that Zach ends up somewhere where there's a man dressed up as a bat. What a crazy man! Zach, who has a bit of a concussion from the explosion earlier, thinks that Batman is one of Zed's monsters and so attacks him. Bats has little trouble defeating Zach on his own, but he does have a bit of trouble when the rest of the Rangers manage to show up. In an epic shot. Nice. Guess those teleporters weren't too badly damaged though, if the rest of the team is able to go exactly where they're needed immediately. With Zack having backup now, Batman calls on his own backup, and so Flash shows up to disarm the Rangers, and Batman tries to intimidate them with a rocket from his Batmobile. In response, Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, summons her pterodactyl dinosaur to pick up Batman's car and fly away with it. Also, Batman's been taken by a flying pink dinosaur robot is a pretty great line. This gets the rest of the Justice League to show up, which finally brings an end to the fighting when Wonder Woman wraps up Kimberly in the lasso of truth in order for them to finally talk things through. With this all cleared up, Zack starts a long thread for this series of blaming himself and apologizing. Though in his defense, he is right about how much there is going on with Batman. I mean, what is up with that guy? We're gonna need like a whole chart to explain him, or a graph, or a diagram, like a Venn diagram. Yeah, that ought to do it. Thanks, Mikey. Before they can figure out what to do about everything, though, suddenly cities all over the globe are being attacked by giant octopi. Octopuses. It's actually octopuses. It really is octopuses. I didn't make the rules, okay? These Cthulhu-like... Chthonic? No. Cthulhic. These Cthulhic monstrosities come from Brainiac, the evil Kryptonian robot that shrink-rays cities so that he can keep them in little bottles before destroying the worlds that they came from. And Zed, of course, ended up on Brainiac's ship, and now the two are working together, because that's how these team-up things go. So Zed took some octopus people from one of Brainiac's bottles and made them into giant city-destroying monsters, the kind the Power Rangers are pretty used to fighting by now. I mean, I'm assuming because the Green Ranger's already on their side, so they've had to be the Power Rangers for, what, at least like 4 episodes or something. I don't know exactly when this is supposed to take place. So the Rangers team up with all sorts of DC superheroes all over the globe to help put a stop to these tentacular troublemakers. And I just love how color coordinated all these groups are. How did they plan these team-ups with such complementary colors? Is color combination just an unspoken Power Rangers superpower? Also, kinda interesting how quickly the Justice League takes to just trusting the Power Rangers. There's just no hesitation, other than on Batman's part, but you know, he's Batman. They're just kinda like, well, these guys aren't sending giant octopuses at us, so they're obviously not the bad guys, so it's probably fine to just have complete and blind faith in their orders. But of course, this was all just playing into the bad guys' hands, because they wanted the Rangers to bring out their Zords so that Brainiac could send in bots to steal the Rangers' power coins and take control of their Zords. And once they have that, Zed and Brainiac peace on out of there to head back to Zed's home dimension, leaving the now powerless Rangers stranded in the DC universe. So the comic then spends honestly a little too much time coming up with a plan to rip the Large Hadron Collider out of the ground and bring it up into space to use it as a giant Stargate to bring through the Ori Starfleet. Sorry, Stargate references that nobody gets. What I mean is, so that they can use it to travel back to Angel Grove. They arrive to find the city already in a bottle, because Brainiac apparently wanted a city from Earth, and he didn't care which Earth that was. Brainiac snatches up the city and leaves, bringing us finally back to where we started this story. Convinced they can stop Brainiac and Zed and still save Angel Grove, the Justice League launch an attack on Brainiac's ship. Wanting to still protect their secret identities, the Power Rangers ask the Justice League to share some thematically appropriate gear with them. I mean, mostly thematically appropriate. Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, of course ends up in Lex Luthor's very green mech suit. Billy, the Blue Ranger, seems to end up dressed as... I don't actually know. Is that Prometheus? Or maybe Knight from Knight and Squire? I'm not really sure, and I also don't see the connection either way. Also not sure why Kimberly is wearing Hawkgirl's mask. Could they just not think of another fitting female character? Why not, I don't know, Speedy, since she still keeps her bow? Too red for the Pink Ranger? You didn't seem to care with Billy. Zack seems to be Nightwing, which I find kind of funny given that this team up opened with him interacting with Batman. And Jason, aka the Red Power Ranger, is wearing Jason Todd's red hood. That's admittedly pretty clever. I mean, it's one of those things that seem like it should have been really obvious, but be honest, you didn't think of it. Trini, the Yellow Ranger, is Katana. I'm assuming because they're both Asian? That's kind of fucked up, you guys. Trini was played by a Vietnamese woman, and Katana is, Japanese? That's pretty different. Trini is practically not even in this story, though, so I guess they weren't wasting a lot of thought on her. The attack on Brainiac's ship is pretty brief, with it taking Superman only moments to obtain the Power Rangers coins and communicators, which I guess were stolen as well. I love those little watch communicators. True story, I got a smartwatch at the very first opportunity and immediately made its ringtone the little doot 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 that plays on their watches when Zordon calls them. I guess I am more of a Power Rangers nerd than I thought. In my defense, the Dick Tracy watch communicator has a less distinctive ring, and I didn't want my watch shouting every few minutes, "Calling Dick Tracy!" Actually, that might have been kind of fun. Just cause they have their stuff back doesn't mean their problems are over though, as Brainiac takes control of Cyborg, who was hacking into Brainiac's ship for info, forcing his new Ranger friends to turn against him, and Batman has to reboot his system, something he's not really supposed to know how to do, in order to clear Cyborg's systems. And look, I know rebooting is like the magical IT keyword, but a virus that intrusive would probably require something more like an entire reimage, but you probably don't care about that. Once cleaned of corruption again, Cyborg is able to lead them to the bottled city of Angel Grove, and to Alpha 5, the real Alpha 5, who Brainiac has apparently kidnapped. Turns out he's fine, and the one we saw explode earlier was a decoy. Brainiac is interested in Alpha 5 because he's fascinated by another sentient robotic life form. Or sentient robotic life form. I'm not going back to that joke, I'm sorry. Alpha 5 delivers a big speech about sentience and friendship to Brainiac, the closest thing this story really gets to some bigger point or meaning. And it's honestly pretty weird that it's Alpha 5 giving this eloquent, powerful speech, seeing as I don't really remember him ever doing much more than being fussy. And when the Power Rangers rescue him, he is right back to his regular speaking habits. I do love how cash Batman is about just kind of keeping this little bit of kryptonite that Brainiac had tried to use to fight off Superman earlier. Billy, who's not just the Blue Ranger but also the genius tech guy of the group, is less secretive about wanting to keep Brainiac's arm, believing he'll be able to use it to restore Angel Grove. But before they can do that, they're forced to deal with Zed, who is attacking the UN with some giant monsters. And some regular-sized monsters, I guess, but he can deal with that, throwing the regular-sized monsters one of his grenades that can make it grow into a Leviathan. But in one of my favorite moments of this entire series, Flash nabs the grenade right out of the air, stopping the creature from having a chance to grow to a giant. He also drops the grenade off with Alpha 5, who decides it's finally his turn to get in on the world-saving action and uses the grenade on himself. But he doesn't know his own new giant strength and nearly crushes the UN building and innocent bystanders. And I love that he feels the need to apologize to the Power Rangers for this. Yeah, they get it. But Zed still had Brainiac on his side, with him in control of the dinosaurs, and even worse, has the command center in an entirely different bottle that he keeps around his neck. I always thought the command center was supposed to be somewhere far away in some lost wasteland somewhere. Apparently it's supposed to be in Angel Grove? I never knew that. Seems weird, but okay. Brainiac's robots break through the hero's ranks and immediately make their way to Cyborg to take control of him again. But this time, Billy and Cyborg were ready for him, and Billy gets to clap back at Brainiac about the ridiculousness of the concept of a 12th level intelligence. Kinda glad to finally hear someone say that, cause I agree, Billy, he definitely made that up. It seems that, in studying the Brainiac arm that they captured, Billy and Cyborg were able to create an anti-Brainiac virus that wipes away all traces of Brainiac in corrupted systems, finally freeing the Zords from his controls. Unwilling to accept defeat though, Zed uses his own grenade on himself to make himself a giant. And while his magical powers are very effective against the Justice League, especially Superman, since Superman has no defense against magic, it's a well-established thing, being ginormous has made it difficult for him to understand the control of his limbs. Although it feels a little weird to me that they just made a big point of Alpha 5, normally a bit of a weakling, getting unexpectedly super strong when being Leviathanized, but then having the exact opposite happen to Zed. I guess it's just the unpredictability of magic or some thing. So unable to hold his own in the required Megazord fight that ends every episode, Zed shrinks down to tiny size to run away. But Kimberly has a solution for that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this entire comic was made for this exact moment, and I love it. I am so totally here for it. We saw Kimberly get Green Arrow's boxing glove arrow earlier, and she had a notable appreciation for the concept behind it. So it's just been a matter of waiting for the inevitable payout on that joke, and this was it. Seeing Lord Zed being knocked out by a boxing glove arrow is uniquely satisfying. With the villains defeated, Angel Grove is restored and the Justice League spend a little civilian time with the Power Rangers at the Juice Bar, giving us surprisingly our only Bulk and Skull cameo. I love those guys. They stick with the series longer than anyone, I think. And with that, the Justice League take their Brainiac and go home, but as we zoom in on Alpha 5, we see this nightmare might not be over just yet. Except there's still no word on a second series, so it probably actually is. So that just leaves us with the breakdown. This comic is surprisingly good. I mean, maybe it shouldn't be surprising given that it's written by Tom Taylor with art by Stephen Byrne and covers by Carl Kerschel. Those are some pretty big names attached to what I thought was sort of a throwaway idea. Boom Studios don't mess around. The writing is quick and witty, the story is fun, the art is bright and colorful, it's just an all-around pretty good time. But don't expect too much out of this either. The plot is mostly empty, just a weak excuse to get characters together to have a very generic superhero style crossover and not much else going on here. And it's definitely more fun for Power Rangers fans than Justice League fans, as it pretty much entirely focuses on the Rangers and the Justice League are pretty secondary. It's not even clear which Justice League exactly this is. Based on the members and outfits, it's sort of vaguely New 52, but I mean, Jon Stewart wasn't there for the New 52 Justice League, at least not really, and the outfits aren't completely New 52, but I can't tell if that is just Byrne's art. While a lot of his art does look very nice, it is maybe the weakest part of this whole comic. The characters are really stiff and it's often very inconsistent in how they look. And I've tried avoiding talking about it, but what's the deal with Superman's perpetual 5 o'clock shadow? Is that a normal thing to give Superman? Isn't he usually super clean shaven? How does he even shave? Does he need a kryptonite razor? Is nobody else distracted by this? So anyway, I'm giving this series a recommendation level of high. None of its weaknesses are particularly serious. It's a simple, silly, fun book, which is what you really should go into it expecting, and if you do, that's exactly what you'll get. The collected edition gets 1 boxing glove arrow. Yeah, you know that's gonna be in the good category. While it always does bother me when issue covers aren't included in the collection before the issues they open to, I try not to hold it too much against any collection. And since this is a good comic and there's a huge cover gallery in the back, and even some panel layout bonus art, I'm still considering this a mighty good collection. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. We're inching ever closer to that big 1K subscribers, so while I do want to ask you to like and subscribe, I also want to ask you to make sure to comment. It's another thing that helps out the channel, and also I'd just love to hear from you. With so many of you out there now, surely some of you must have something to say. Do you like my jokes? Do you hate my jokes? Do you notice that I'm making jokes? Do you like potatoes? Do you say potatoes? Whatever you want to comment about. All you regulars who usually comment anyway are rock stars, and I want to make sure you know that, but I still want to hear from the rest of you. And I just want to make sure that you stick around for next week when I get back to more of the Death and Return of Superman arc, and I hope to see you then, right here, in the Comic Cave.